Welcome to Perspectives Matter, the McQuestion program, where we continue talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of the program is made possible in part by donations from individual viewers, grants, and supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television.
This program continues our discussion on whether death, like taxes, is inevitable. On part one, we looked at the tremendous amount of research being done around the world into treating the disease of aging as just that, a disease. This program focuses on the ethics, financial, welfare, religious, and other issues surrounding the possibility of immortality. Now, joining us again are the co-authors of a new book, The Death of Death, Jose Cordeiro and David Wood. And welcome, gentlemen. And so, David, I'm going to just give you a brief intro first. You've written or co-authored a dozen books on the future. You are focused on that. Obviously, you were a veteran of the early days of mobile computing and smartphone industries, and then you're the executive director, and I want to make sure I get this right, of the LEV Foundation. That's the Longevity, Escape, Velocity Foundation. We'll probably talk about that again, but on program one, for those of you who haven't seen it, you can check that out again. And then Jose Luis Cordeiro is a guy that I met down in Madrid earlier this year at the Liberty International Conference, and he's vice chair of Humanity Plus. He's a board director of the Millennium Project and the author of several books, including the co-author, of course, of The Death of Death. Now, Jose, give that viewer just a quick overview of what we talked about in the first part of this two-part series, and then get us right on into what Ray Kurzweil has to say about the bridges to get there.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Again, it is fantastic to talk about our book because both David and myself, we are dedicating our lives to cure aging because more and more people are beginning to understand that aging is a disease. In fact, it is the mother of all diseases. And if we cure aging, we will basically cure most chronic conditions. We will cure cardiovascular problems, neurological diseases, even cancer. So the main problem is aging itself. And there is a new change of opinion, how this is so important now today. And many people, like my friend Ray Kurzweil, I am one of the founding faculty of Singularity University in Silicon Valley in California in the year 2009. And Ray Kurzweil has been championing this idea with many other people. And in his books, like The Singularity is Near, and the new one coming next year, The Singularity is Nearer, about 20 years after his first book, The Singularity is Near, or in his book, Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever, he talks about stopping aging, reversing aging, and even biological immortality. In the book, Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever, he talks about longevity, escape, velocity, that we should be reaching by 2030, and then rejuvenation technologies by the year 2045. And to make this happen, he talks about three bridges to immortality. The first bridge, which was basically until now to do the things we could do, which was not much really. What your mother told you: eat well, sleep well, do some exercise, meditate, don't smoke, etc., etc. That was bridge one until the 2010s. Now, in the 2020s, we are beginning bridge two, which are the first biotechnology therapies. We are beginning to understand the biology of aging and how to stop and reverse aging. And we have several therapies now that are starting, and we can talk more about those later. But anyway, in this second bridge, we will gain some extra years, some more time to be alive, and that will take us into bridge three in the 2030s. And this third bridge will be using not only biotechnology, but also nanotechnology and artificial intelligence. And finally, we will make it into the 2040s when we hope to have rejuvenation technologies for everyone who wants to live indefinitely young. And underline that, indefinitely young, because we don't want to be indefinitely old. No one wants that. What we are working towards is living indefinitely young for as long as you want. And so those are the three bridges to immortality, according to my friend Ray Kurzweil.
You guys are talking about this singularity, and of course, for those who've read Ray Kurzweil's present book and will read his new one, the idea of machine knowledge and, let's say, human knowledge and behavior coming together. Should we be concerned about that, David? Because there are many of us who are just saying, if these machines become smarter than we are, we may live forever. We may be at the mercy of machines, for heaven's sake. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility, but only if we are careless and thoughtless. Technology is often a two-edged sword. If we aren't careful with fire, it can burn things down. So if we are careful with it, it can keep us warm, cook our food. It's the same with electricity. It can kill people or it can empower us with all kinds of information devices. It's the same with AI. AI could be incredibly useful to us. It can help us solve some problems. AI is already solving problems in science which people didn't know how to solve. It predicts how a big molecule called a protein, which is made up of many smaller molecules called amino acids, it predicts how they're going to fold up in 3 dimensions, and therefore it predicts its chemical and properties and how it interacts in medicine. So we are seeing these benefits from AI. Now, if we are careless, we will allow these same tools to be used for the generation of fake news, the generation of interference in lives. And so we have to be smart collectively to talk about the issues. But if we use AI wisely, it's going to propel us faster than ever before towards the longevity escape velocity.
Well, I'm hoping that you're correct about that. However, David, there is this issue of overpopulation. We've got, I don't know, 7.5, close to 8 billion people headed for at least 9 billion. And to me, if all of a sudden we have this cocktail that we can take and we just keep the rest of us alive, I'm not sure this planet can handle all this overpopulation. How would you figure out a way to solve that problem, David, huh?
Well, people predicted in the past that there were already too many people on the planet. At the end of the 18th century, Thomas Malthus, a vicar in the UK, said the world can't cope. There's already too many people. More recently, Paul Ehrlich, a well-known writer, he predicted that billions of people were bound to die. This is writing in the 1960s. He predicted billions of people would die in the 1970s. Surely, because there wasn't enough food to feed them. It turns out that technology could improve. It turns out that we were much better at growing more food more healthily, and that trend is continuing. Remarkably, farms are using less land to produce more food with fewer people, using less water, emitting fewer greenhouse gases. That can progress and continue. And we can give up a lot of the lands which are currently being used to grow crops, to feed to animals that we slaughter and then eat their meat. We can do this much better. We can have so-called cultivated meat, in which there aren't even sentient animals involved. The same biological innovations that will allow us to live longer will mean that we can radically transform agriculture as well. We'll eat what we want, but we'll take much less space to do it, and therefore the population can grow very substantially beyond its current 8 billion. In due course, not in any hurry, in due course, there's a whole universe that we can fill up with people. So we needn't
Okay.
worry about that either.
Yeah, David. Okay. Now, Jose, it looks to me like that those wealthy people like the two of you and Ray Kurzweil will be able to take advantage of this stuff. But what about all of us peasants out there who may not have the money or the, let's say, the ability to get these kind of treatments? What about the rest of us, huh?
Well, I think this will be included in Social Security in the future. When technologies begin, they are always very expensive and also very bad. Think about cell phones. Cell phones were only for the wealthy people, and when they came out, they were actually pretty bad. They could only make phone calls from time to time. Now, cell phones are incredibly powerful, and you use them for almost everything, not just for making phone calls.
Wait a minute.
And
Wait a minute.
everybody,
Wait a minute, Jose. Are you saying that's a positive or that's a negative? Which is it?
oh, it is positive that cell phones are
But
available to
social
everybody.
media everywhere, Jose. I mean, people are talking to people all over the world and wasting their time and screwing up their brains, aren't they? I mean, I think it's all David's fault, frankly, because he was in the beginning of this. Can't you blame David for some of this?
Yes, but I'll tell you something really good. Sequencing the human genome. The first human genome took 13 years to sequence and cost $3 billion. $3 billion. Today, you can sequence the human genome in a few days for $300. And soon it will be done in minutes for only $10. So it is an incredible advance. And that is also why, again, I repeat, we will cure cancer because we will identify the mutations in the cancer cells and compare to the good cells. And this will be done when sequencing the human genome is only about $10, and that will be in about 5 years. So that you see the incredible advance in science. And so everybody will sequence their genome. Everybody will have access to all these technologies. And I think this is fantastic. This is what is revolutionizing medicine. It is becoming available to everybody, better medicine, better therapies, and to everybody around the planet.
Yeah, but look, Jose, I mean, I hear you and I start going, rah, 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 how can I get on your team? And yet, David, if I may say, that if you're successful in all of these people getting this and you think overpopulation's okay, well, how about this one, David? I mean, retiring today, people retire at 62 or 65 or 70 or whatever. So we have people retiring at 62, 65, 70. Now they're going to live 200 or 300 years. The federal government in America and most governments in the world are broke already, notwithstanding the fact that they are typically broke because of these welfare programs. How do you solve that, my friend, huh?
The same technologies that give us rejuvenation will give us an abundance of food, an abundance of energy, an abundance of healthcare, an abundance of education. So more and more of these things will be very cheap indeed. So we won't need a great deal of money to have a very good quality of life. This is almost the Star Trek vision of what the future may hold. And it is possible. Just because it's been written about in science fiction doesn't mean it can't happen. We can see the trends already. There are so many things that are much cheaper now than people imagined they would be in the past. And let's see more of that. As for what you and I will be doing in the future, we might be working some of the time, but we're unlikely to be paid for doing much of what we do because in the future, the AIs will probably be better than us at many of the critical things. So they'll be doing the really tough jobs, and you and I will be free to do what we really want to do, whether it's playing golf, whether it's exploring the world, whether it's discovering more music, discovering fiction, or traveling to see the moons of Jupiter.
Yeah, but look, David, I mean, let's be realistic. Some of us do what we do, whether it's in consulting or television or writing books and doing scientific things like you guys do. That gives us a purpose in life. But if I'm looking at my life and I say, well, I've got several hundred years, I mean, David, tell me what people are going to really do. I mean, there's only so many Netflix movies you can watch, for God's sakes. I mean, what is it that will have to change that will give us that purpose and the ability to accomplish things that we know today we have a deadline for, but we may not have a deadline for? Tell me what that's going to be like, David.
So if you consider a young child, the young child can think they're likely to live at least another 70 or 80 years. But they still manage to have lots of deadlines in their life because what they're doing now is something that excites them. Oh, let's rush and meet the friends. Let's play this game. Let's watch this Peppa Pig program or whatever. You don't need to map out what you're going to do for 100 years. The point is that there are things you want to do in the short term. And I think all people are interested in at least some music. All people are interested in at least some travel. All people are interested in playing some games. And I think they're going to get much, much better, more incredibly interesting. I think the Netflix programs we have now are in many cases great, but they'll be even more fascinating in the future. So I'm not saying we'll necessarily want to live millions of years, But I think the most important thing is that people should have the freedom to keep on living if they want to keep on living, rather than just being forced by nature, by aging, to slow down and stop. It's about freedom for the short term.
Okay, Jose, I appreciate what you and David have said about that, but there's another really big issue to think about. Much of the world as we know it has some history to it that is focused on religion. There are literally billions of people who hold one or more religious beliefs. And as you have said in your book, Jose, a lot of people, from the religion perspective, there is a real focus on death. There is the life we lead now, and then the life that some people believe you will lead afterwards, and that you live today a good life so that you will be rewarded afterwards. And if you're talking about living either immortally or for a long, long time, what's the effect going to be on those religions in your estimation?
Well, many things will change indeed, including religion. In fact, I think not just because of longevity, but also because soon, in maybe 10 years, we will have a colony, a human colony on planet Mars. When we look from Mars down to our planet, to the Earth, we will change many of our conceptions in terms of religion as well. But I don't want to discuss if religions are good or bad, because religions also, they want to keep people healthy. And this is about health. Curing aging is a health problem. And most religions are very much in favor of curing cancer, curing cardiovascular diseases, curing Alzheimer's. Therefore, they should be also in favor of curing aging, because aging is the mother of all diseases. That means that religion should also be in favor of this. Also, I like in Jewish culture, when you have a birthday, they say, may you live to 120 years, because that was the biological age of Moses, apparently. But why only 120? How about Methuselah? Methuselah lived 969 years, according to the Bible. So I could be happy to be like Methuselah, 969 years old. Also in Hinduism, there are people who have lived thousands of years in the holy books of Hinduism. So I think religion should be in favor of curing diseases, and that means curing aging. But again, this is not mandatory. And if some people want to die, well, they are free to die. In fact, until now, we were forced to die. We had to die. We did not have this freedom. And what we want is freedom to be alive and to be healthy. And I think that most religions will welcome this. They will welcome people living longer, healthier lives.
Well, you are probably more optimistic than I am, because religion, and not just religion, there are cultural institutions in virtually every society that are built upon tradition, if I may say tradition. And they are, as we know, very, very slow to change. We've seen slow changes over centuries for a lot of these institutions. What makes you, Jose, you and David, so much belief that people will change things just because we have the technology to do so?
I will let David answer, but I will tell you, you are absolutely right. Even marriage will change. Marriage will have to change, because until death do us apart will not be the future, unless you kill your partner or your partner kills you. Because if you are going to be living for millennia, probably you will not want to be with one single partner. So yes, marriage will probably be transformed into a contract, a renewable contract, maybe 10 years, 20 years. So yes, everything will change, but David can answer better than me.
Well, David, I'm going to give you a chance to answer, but I'm going to say that there are some of us in this world who have probably had more than one partner already. So to think that we'll be around for hundreds of years, how many partners can we have? Go ahead, David.
Well, I've been happily married to my dear wife for 41 years, and I'm looking forward to another 41 years of happy marriage. But people differ, and of course, different people will grow in different ways, and so it's about freedom. In terms of the pace of cultural change, it's a little bit like the pace of technological change. I mean, it's often slow and disappointing and frustrating, and then suddenly it changes more quickly than anybody expected. That's how it was with the adoption of smartphones. It was very slow and it didn't seem to be going anywhere, and then in just a few years they were everywhere. It was the same with powered flight. People fantasized, imagined, mythologized for millennia about being able to fly in the sky. And most people failed until, in just a relatively small number of years, the Wright brothers flew, and then Blériot flew over the English Channel, and then people flew across the Atlantic, and just a few decades later, people flew all the way to the moon. Cultural change is often the same. People are sometimes fearful of changing their ideas because they think that their neighbors will disapprove. They say, well, these factors change. And so we've seen in recent history rapid change in attitudes towards, I guess, animal rights, towards vegetarians and vegans, and towards same sex marriage. These things don't, of course, happen completely. There are hiccups along the way, but I think we will be surprised at how quickly people flip from saying, I don't mind aging and dying, to saying, hey, I want to be part of the first immortal generation. Let's do it. Tell me how
All
I
right.
can take part.
Okay, well, that's the question I want to, in the few minutes we have left, I want to talk to you guys about or ask you about, David. I'll start with you, David. And that is, what can that viewer do if they like your concepts here, to move this process along? What options do they have, and what perspectives do we need to have to share with them that they will get involved in this to help make it happen, David?
Speak to your friends, speak to your colleagues. Point out that there are many animals that do not age, surprisingly. People assume that death and aging is inevitable in nature. Point out that is not the case, that there are creatures that, of course, they live and get chronologically older, but they don't become more likely to die. So learn a little bit about the science, learn about some of the trials I spoke about, the dog trials, the mice trials, the other interventions. Spread that news and help your friends and colleagues to make a similar change in mind. And as more people change their mind, suddenly everybody's going to be more or less singing from this same perspective. And then governments will have to act. Governments do respond to the pressures from electorates. And when the governments are saying this, some visionary politicians will say, hey, this is the best way we can deal with the health crisis. Let's deal with the root cause, which is aging.
Um, Now, Jose, in all the speeches that you give and the conferences you attend, you run across these objections, but you also run across people who want to know what they can do. Other than what David has talked about, what suggestions do you have?
People need to know that this is real, this is scientific, and this is happening very soon. I love to say that we are between the last human mortal generation and the first immortal generation. And where do you want to be? Among the last stupid people who die, or the first intelligent people who are able to live indefinitely young, who can rejuvenate? Because I plan to be younger in the future. So, really, this is the best time to be alive and to remain alive. And we are going to see more technological advances in the next 20 years than in the last 2,000 years. I repeat, in the next 2 decades, more advances in science and technology, including biology and medicine, than in the last 2 millennia. This is truly the best time to be alive and to remain alive for as long as you want, and younger, healthier, and even more
Yeah.
intelligent.
So I'm going to give you 15 seconds, David, to say anything that you may want to let that viewer think about.
Search online. There's a lot of information about this, and connect online with communities where you can ask your questions. It's all right to be skeptical. It's all right to be unsure, but ask the questions and you'll find that actually there are people who have got good answers for this, and that may
Good.
set you on a path to really change your life.
15 seconds, Jose, please.
Well, I recommend people do not die. Again, this is the time to stay alive and remain alive. And if you hang in there for the next 10 years, probably you will live long enough to live forever.
Thank you so much. You guys are just great. And so there you have it. You may well have different perspectives from those you've seen and heard on these two programs, and many other people will as well. But we believe that perspectives matter, that you're entitled to your own. Check McQuestion TV for part 1 of this 2-part series. Join us on social media and keep watching as we always talk about things that matter with people who care.